welcome everyone to another episode of the Wood from the Trees podcast. I really hope you enjoy this episode. And if you like what we're doing and you'd like to support us, go to patreon.com/the Wood from the Trees. Hope you enjoy the episode. Love you loads.
Night at half 11 or 12, yeah.
Is it outrageous going, is it?
This is a deal.
Talk into the Oaks, please. Sorry.
What's that?
I do have to shout with Garrett and Greg to talk into the mics the whole thing. It's big stupid fucking
We're
ease.
not built with these jokes. You know, this wouldn't be our thing, really.
No.
But and we'll say you're at the harvesting and bring you out a timber. But is it all timber related? Like, do you make forestry roads and you usually sod back in the day, or do you do ploughing?
Our old lad done forestry roads.
Yeah, he did.
But we don't. We just stick to the harvesting and the haulage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tough game.
You done a bit of forestry, didn't you?
I'm still working in forestries.
Roads.
Everything, yeah.
Would you be good off-road now? Or do your digger lads stick to the road?
No, oh God, no. We're good in bog.
Good on wet ground.
Yeah, because there's enough of it around. But, yeah, you see, I always said that, fellas, you have an awful advantage in life. If you've lorries, or if you've diggers, or if you've forwarders or harvesters, you have a great advantage in life. And do you know what the advantage is?
Huh.
No fear in the world about dying. Because when you die, you are going straight up to heaven, like.
Because it's hard.
Because all the suffering, the purgatory, all of that is done on earth.
Now,
so you have to go straight
I'm just
to
going
heaven.
to put it out there first now. I married a Protestant.
He did.
What has that got to do with the price of
I'll let
eggs?
everyone down.
Jesus Christ, you can't be handling the Protestants like that.
I'm only joking.
But you did, though.
I did.
Yeah.
I did, yeah.
It's not a joke.
I'm always saying to my mother and the parish priest at home that I should be getting some sort of an award. Not because I'm a big deal online, the best forward driver in the world, but because I took one Protestant and made 4 Catholics. I'm thinning them out, like.
Oh God almighty.
This is probably going to be a different interview than you've ever done.
What did the priest say?
The priest was delighted. He was there. Fair play to you, David. They gave me a special trip to the Vatican and everything.
Could you imagine if we leave her and marry another Protestant?
Hey, I often say if anything happened, my dear wife, and God hope she never does, but I'd never marry again.
Absolutely not.
Couldn't do that to myself again.
You could marry a Catholic.
I could give that a word. Right, boys, we'll pick this in. You all right? Because Garrett's the worst.
I'm good.
Garrett drifts off and he'd be talking shite there and
no
one can hear him at all. Hey, you're an awful busy man, right? And you've done Living with Lucy and loads of social media stuff. Like, you're good at the social media. How do you get someone to do that for you? Or do you just are you the type of lad that goes, I don't care, I'll do it?
Well, I don't know. I just wouldn't think about it too much. But you see, a pile of people in life, what makes them different is they analyse things too much. Like, and it's like one time there was a program on the television called Questions and Answers.
Remember it?
And they'd ask politicians to go on it. And of course, a little known secret is maybe 2 or 3 or 4 days beforehand, you'd be sent the questions. So the first time I was ever asked to go on the program, I said, I will, of course, I'd be delighted. But they said, we'll send you the questions. And I said, oh God, you can't do that. And they said, why? But I said, if I'll get the questions, sure, I'll be worried about the answers. I said, I'll go and I'll do your program, but the deal is I don't know what you're going to ask. I don't know what you're going to talk about, because I'd just be too worried about it. So I used go, and I didn't have a clue what they were going to go asking. And sure, it's up to yourself. Who can either answer or who can't. It looks bad enough who can't. And sure, if who can't answer that question, answer a different question that they didn't ask you at all.
But it'd nearly be like homework. You'd be nearly at home trying to figure out
too much rubbish. And anyway then, sure, what's the worst thing in the world we ever saw? Somebody coming out on something. To be like I'd come in here now today with a big ball of paper and you'd have to say to yourself, are you going to light your fire or what? Like, you know?
Yeah.
Sure, I mean, you either...
If I had to remember stuff like that, it's like whenever I do live shows, if someone says, this is the structure that we're using, I can't do it. Yes. I can just arrive and then I'm grand.
But if we can start to go with the flow, like... But, so...
You may speak into the microphone now.
Yeah, but...
Or no one will hear you.
No, but so... Like, your thing is okay, you do this and you're obviously very good at it, but if we look at the work you're doing there, going to forestry there now and things, and thinning and clear felling and all that, like, 'tis hard work. You never did with a horse, no?
No.
Our uncles all did, yeah.
I did.
That was hard.
It was. I had a horse called Billy, myself and Dan Casey, and I lived in a forestry, in a caravan, and like our caravan, like it wasn't
state of the art.
No, definitely. The hottest thing in it was at night time when we'd boil a pot of spuds, and we'd purposely wouldn't open the windows because
the steam was nice and warm.
The steam and try and heat us up, like.
No, a brunette 678. That time, just when the machine started coming, we arrived.
You were very lucky.
Yeah.
But then we progressed into 4-wheel drive tractor with a double barrel winch behind it. We thought we were like Lord Ha-Ha that time.
We
wouldn't call the Queen our aunt.
Yeah.
But like, the horse now, to be honest, the horse was tough.
And how many diggers have you?
It was hard on the horse, like. But I met machinery all my life then, like.
So what made you go away from the actual harvest?
Why didn't I buy harvest? I don't know. There's a very good crowd near us. Katumi.
I know Katumi.
Yeah.
Well.
And the young lads there, they're great. But like when I would have been with their father, he would have been drawing from us. But like the young lads, they'd be younger than me, so they wouldn't have been of working age, we'll say. But they're a great family, like yourselves. Their heads are on the right way around. Like I like them people now very, very much. I met Dunica there lately. Sure, Dunica, he's a little bit high in 80, I think, at the moment, and sure, he's working every day. Like every day.
You don't stop ahead.
No,
it's very constant. It's a problem even getting drivers, young lads at sea. We noticed since we started doing social media, young lads that are at, drawn in silage and working with contractors would see what we're doing and go, oh, jeez, I'd love to do that. How do you get into that?
No, it's a different work.
They don't like it's constant all year.
Yeah. I met Donica years ago at a forestry show, and the young lad was with me, and I said, I was trying to get him to stay in school to do something other than forestry because it's a tough game. And he said, don't do that. He said, if he likes to go to it, it's good work, it's honest work. Your father made a living, you're making a living, go for it.
Was it old Dunica said that?
Old Dunica, yeah. Dennis's father, is it?
Yeah.
Lovely man.
Yeah, a gentleman, a fine man. Yeah, if there was more of him in the country, it would be.
Yeah.
So who runs all your stuff while you're at this? Sure, this must be flat out for you.
Well, I have a son, Ian, who works at it, and my other son, then Kevin, he works at it, and we're able to keep things going. But you would be busy. Like
so you probably know nothing else when you're out at done it. And
yeah. Well, like, I'll put it to you this way. If I wasn't in politics today, where I would be today is I'd be up on a digger. And like, but you can't lose if we're always happy at what we're doing. And like, I'd be very, very happy driving a digger. I'm very, very happy representing people at politics. And if you told me, go out there today and go sweeping the yard outside, I'd be very happy doing that as well. So like, I just like keeping going, and like, it's a privilege, of course, to be elected and to be representing people. But once I'm busy and once I have a lot to do, and it's like when I got, we'll say, an extra job there after the last election, people would say, oh, well, how do you fit that in? But sure, the way to always look in life is if you have something to do tomorrow morning, you're not going to ring some fella that you know is at home doing nothing, because sure, he's going to do nothing anyway. But if you have very, very busy friends, like if he had a forwarder stuck tomorrow morning, sure, it isn't the fella that's idle at home who are going to go ringing to come to give you a hand. Sure, it's some other fella that's equally as busy as yourselves, and you're going to ring him. He's going to drop what he's doing to come to you to get you out, and then he'll go back to what he was doing. So busy people can do a lot.
But you're trying to avoid egots. Is that a different story in the Dáil, because it looks to be full of them?
No. You see, the one thing about the Dáil is that whether you agree or disagree with people that are inside there, there's one thing you must always do. You must always agree to the fact that we live in a democracy, and people put up their names and they say, please vote for me. And people do it. And when they do, even if there are people that are completely and absolutely politically opposed to, you mightn't like one thing that will come out of their mouths, but you must still respect the fact that a majority of people voted for them and put them in the position, whether that's in Kerry County Council or on any other local authority in the country, or whether it's in Dáil. Like, when people vote for somebody, and when I hear people saying things like, oh, this corrupt government and all of this, it's a democracy. The people vote, they have their say. And like, what would people rather? That we'd have a dictatorship and, be someplace like Russia or North Korea? I mean, you have to you mightn't agree with what somebody says, but you must agree with the fact that they have the right to say it because they got elected.
What I do feel is most critical thinking people, that kind of a bit of common sense, what they see, now it could be a social media thing, because I'd say social media has changed the way what you see in the Dáil and what we see when we look at what's going on. It's like you vote people in, they come in, and it feels like it's the civil servants under all ye that run the country. That's what it feels like, because all these things happen, and like the bike sheds and the bush shelter things down there, and you're wondering, yes, how is this possible?
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. Like, there are great people working in departments, and then there are people that you might have disagreements with. But at the end of the day, everybody's only trying to do a job. But when you see mistakes being made, you would start to say to yourself, oh God, how did that happen? Or like, there's legislative things that have happened. And we'll say particularly, and I don't know whether I'm supposed to say this or not, but we'll say under the Greens. Like, the Greens did an awful lot of things. And again, I don't mean to be personal about anybody, because I have this one rule: when individuals are retired or lose a seat or something, I will not criticize individual people. So I'm talking about policies, right? Okay. And so I'm not talking about individuals, because that's not nice. But with regard to policies, I believe that the Green Party actually did an awful lot of harm to the environment in Ireland. The environment that they were all the time preaching about protecting.
We do too.
They did an awful lot of damage. Now, so we'll say, tackle me on that and say, hold on, no, you can't say that, back that up, right? Well, I'll back it up by one thing. If you take the extraction of peat, they thought it was a great idea to stop us of extracting peat, and at the same time, we can import it from places like Latvia. We can import biomass material from Brazil. We can, we can actually export peat from Northern Ireland. But at the same time,
can't go it.
Exactly. You can't cut it.
And the
here
amount
in
of
the
jobs
commercial
lost over it.
Yes, but we'll have the jobs in some other country. They would be in favour of reducing the national herd. And what do they want us to do then? Import beef from Brazil? So, like, if you go micromanaging and analysing some of the policies that they were pursuing, they were actually very anti-environment. And they did an awful lot of what I would call nearly irreparable damage. And this whole thing of targeting farmers then, and sort of pointing the finger at farmers and blaming them. Like, the custodians of the land are our farmers. They're the real Green Party. They are the people who, they have a farm, they want to nurture it, they want to mind it, they want to pass it on to the next generation. And yes, they want to do an innocent enough thing. They want to make a living out of it while they have it. There's no harm in making a living, you know. And at the same time, then we had people preaching them as if, that they were destroying the environment or something. And I mean, like, it's like hedge cutting. They talk about the bird nesting season. No one of us wants to damage or harm one bird. We don't want to damage anything like that. But
I'd make sure you have a turkey at Christmas.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah, but you can't even drive up the roads now because we can't cut is safety more important than...
No, but I'll ask you a question. When we were walking the roads, or if we were on a bicycle, did you ever see a bird being foolish enough to put their nest on the edge of a busy road?
No.
Never. The birds aren't stupid. They're inside in a field. They're down below somewhere off the edge of the road. So if you come along and if you cut the edge of a road, you're not going to hit one bird. You're not going to hit one nest.
And they put you to jail for it.
Yes. But so there's common sense things like that. You're talking about bureaucracy and about things being wrong. There's things like that that don't make sense.
But you see what you're after saying there? Everything you're after saying is common sense. But they don't seem to have that.
And no one listens, like even with us, we can only talk about what we do. Say we're to look after the environment and we're the custodians of the forest and we know the best way to do it and the way to do the least damage. And then you have all these rules and regulations and birds, and you're in sites when you shouldn't be in them, when you can't look after it because of a bird nesting that we never see, that doesn't exist.
Like, imagine they can't come into a forest now. The whole sleeve blooms is shut off for the hen harrier, right? And I think there's 2 up there. It's all up there.
Well, unless they have a belly like an elephant, which they don't have, you're talking about foraging area. Like, why do you have to take such a scribe of land out
It's ridiculous.
for, we'll say, a nesting pair? And like, believe me, am I worried about the hen harrier? I'm so worried about the hen harrier. Back in 25 years ago, I went to Pamplona for one purpose. It wasn't for the fun of it, because I hate traveling. I hate getting on a plane, but I did it because I wanted to educate myself. Why did I go to Pamplona? Wind farm capital, you could call it, of Europe at the time. And they have the hen harrier there. And they put the turbines where the hen harriers were nesting, right? And of course, we were bringing in rules and regulations here with regard to protecting that habitat. So I wanted to talk to the people out there and see firsthand. And like, it's actually, it's a proven fact that the hen harriers, they get used to the turbines, and the amount of times that they'd have what they call a strike would be very, very seldom.
Yeah.
Again, because the birds aren't stupid. Yeah. Like, a bird will know a thing is turning around, and they will avoid it, and they'll stay away from that area altogether. And it's like the foraging area. If you have a nesting pair, a breeding pair of hen harriers, say, for example, and like, I'm really interested in our native wildlife, or birds, we'll say. I want to see the curlew and all of these. I want to see all them continue to exist into the future. I really, really passionately do. But if you will say 50 acres over here, and there's a nesting pair there, and you want a forest, a place here alongside it, and say, yes, it is bouncing near it, but you want to plant it, like, what in the name of God is wrong with doing that? Because your nesting pair that are over here, like, if they have 50 acres on that land, like I said, they have 2 small little tiny bellies. They don't need hundreds of acres of land. And this word foraging, like, it is not giraffes we're talking about. They're small, tiny little birds.
Yeah. And the thing is, they'd stop us from working in the wood the whole season. Just, we have to go out with them woods, and they're probably winter sites, and we have to go do them
in the winter. So,
you know what I mean?
So it's an environment or a bird, and we're trying to pick between both. And then when the timber's out, a lorry can't even drive into the wood. Lorry can't even drive into the forest and load timber. So we could have timber sitting on the road for 6 months, drying out, and no, it's hen harrier.
Because I think they think the hen harrier is playing hopscotch on the road or something.
But like, you see, again, that's common sense gone out the window. And you see, the very fact, you said the thing there a minute ago about, if you look at where you're working every day, you're working inside in forestries, a place where very few people might walk through a wood, right? But they don't see what you see.
No.
Because you're actually up on a forwarder, you're up on a harvester, and you're inside for maybe 8, 10, 12, 15 hours in a day. And you're inside, so you're living in that environment. Yep. You're seeing everything. Whatever wildlife is there or not there, you're seeing it all. You're seeing it in good weather, bad weather, frosty weather, snowy weather, everything. Yep. And like, sure, them are the people that know about the environment then. And then you're coming along, it's a renewable source, right? I mean, I'm trying to promote the use of wood as much as I can, because if we're going to build, 30, 40, 50,000 houses a year, we are going to need one small little thing. We're going to need a thing called a roof for on top of it. We're going to need stud partitions for inside it. We have 2 choices. We can use sources such as steel, right? Or we can use renewables such as timber. If we're not going to have enough timber right now, what are we going to do then? Import it from Scotland? So again, it's coming back to the likes of the Green Party. Would they rather us not to be planting here and to be importing it from somewhere else? Nothing about the carbon footprint. And it's okay for them to have forest, we'll say, about our ban here and the 30 millimeters of peat, right? Yeah. Like, people ridiculed me because I questioned planting on peaty soils, right? And I heard, and it's an awful thing to be misquoted. I heard a scientist somewhere in Ireland. And I have to be honest and tell you, I don't think much of his actual intelligence, and I'll tell you why. He said that I was advocating planting on deep peaty ground. Now, the reason I question his intelligence, I never said that. So he's either stupid and he misheard what I said, or else he made it up, which is very unfair. But I have never said we should plant on deep peaty soils. We did in the past, but now we obviously know you can't do that.
Can't, no.
But there's an often, when I mention the word peat, people think of sods of turf.
Yeah.
But when I say to you, lads, I want us to be able to plant on peaty ground, you know exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
It's not earthy ground. It's not places you could cut
It's
it.
6 inches to 3 or 4 foot.
Yes, but it's not even that. There's minerals in the soil. It's not a peat soil, but it could be reclaimed land that was turned long ago.
Yeah.
It could be just this thing that's the difference between a field with soil in it.
We've cut silage on peaty ground.
Exactly. Of course you have.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is we should be allowed plant trees on peaty sites.
Do you ever think that the problem the Greens and the government have when it comes to forestry and planting timber and stuff is that it has such a bad rep because they've done such a bad job publicising it? It's like Quilcha, they keep the harvesting as a dirty little secret. They promote it on all their social medias for everyone to go for a lovely walk, but not realising that the harvesting end of it pays for the party and you're allowed to use this as much as you want until it's time for harvesting.
Well, you see, the difference now is that's my responsibility now. And whatever happened in the past, it's my responsibility on behalf of the government to ensure that we promote forestry. We want to achieve 8,000 hectares a year of planting. That's a very ambitious target. I have an awful lot of problems in trying to do that. I'm only started at this job. Quilta is my responsibility. I take it very, very seriously. I have said to Quilta that our main focus is to plant trees, to harvest trees, to provide timber to our market, both nationally and internationally, and to make money. Quilta will have to make money. Yes, of course, there's the other aspect to Quilta, which is very important, and that is the walks and the natural amenities.
And they are doing that.
They are, and doing it very, very well. Yeah. And I compliment Quilta on that. But I will be advocating that Quilta keeps its core business, and that is actually making money, planting timber, getting it to grow, harvesting it, and continuing that cycle. But then with regard to government policy, my responsibility now very, very clearly is to try and convince people that yes, for the future, I'm very worried about, say, our sawmills for the future, that will we actually have enough timber? I'm talking about in 10 and 15. It's a crazy thing today to be talking about it because of the fact we have so much timber on the ground. But it's the future I'm looking at because our planting rates are so poor that the timber isn't going to fall out of the sky in 10, 15, 25 years' time.
Yeah.
And to keep those sawmills, we've had massive investment, as you know, in our sawmills. If you take the likes of yourselves, people who have put not thousands but millions of euros into machinery, like that machinery is on a cycle. The stuff that you have today, you'll have it for 3, 4, maximum 5 years. It'll be off out the gap and be replaced, and it'll have to be replaced because otherwise the business won't continue. It won't be in existence in 10 years' time if you're going to be using the exact same stuff as you had today. So you're on a treadmill. But to keep that treadmill going, one of the main things, and that's my job, is to make sure that people actually plant.
How are you gonna, because after getting such a bad rep and have more, don't plant on peat, stay away from drains.
Every time they are planting, they're planting less.
Well, that's a very important point. But there are certain things that are being done. We'll say when you talk about waterways and things like that, there's things being identified on maps as streams, right? And they're not streams. Because a stream is a thing that flows and that carries water. But we have places where water is actually lodged, right? And if you stepped into it, yes, it could come up over your shoes or over your boots or over your Wellingtons. In other words, there'd be a green layer on top of it. But that's not moving at all. So if it is going anywhere, it's being filtered very, very slowly.
Yeah.
But when you're told you have to stay back so many meters from that on both sides, and sure, there could be a heap of them in a farm, of course you're cutting out a pile of ground.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't understand that. I'm trying to cut through what I would call a lot of the red tape with that, of saying, yes, we can't go near streams. even though you do know that there's an awful argument to be made. If you have a river, if you have a stream, one of the best things you can have near that is shade. Now, obviously not conifers, not softwood, but having hardwood. And like the most idyllic river you could actually have is a nice river, a meandering river, with nice hardwood growing alongside it. It's shade, it keeps the temperature of the water cooler in hot weather. It's shade for fish, right? It's a protection for fish. And any type of ecologist with any qualifications whatsoever would tell you they would rather have a river, with a bank of timber near it rather than not.
And wildlife.
And
helps the wildlife.
But they're planting nothing 20 metres either side.
Why not? Sure, it's leaving it barren. Yeah.
And what's more is, down through the years, timber has been our corridor to get from one block to another.
Yes.
Now we're going to have 40 metres and a river in the middle. How are we going to get from one block to another? Mm-hmm. The future's going to be funny that way.
It is. But look, the only thing I can tell you is work in conjunction with the people in the department who I have a lot of respect for. We often might have a disagreement about different aspects of things, as you could imagine. But at the end of the day, I'm looking forward very, very much to working with the officials who are very hardworking people in the department itself, and with all the other ministers in the agriculture, and with the head people in Coillte, and the people on the ground. And remember, the people on the ground are terrible, terrible important. The forestry inspectors, the ecologists that do up the reports. I'll be forging a great friendship with those people because I'm very interested in what they're doing.
Would you feel that we get listened to now when we say what we think should be done?
Oh, more so than ever. I mean, when we go into a site now, we actually determine nearly the way it's cut because we're in the machines.
For sure.
Like someone that's doing paperwork can't say a machine's going to cross there.
Yeah.
We have to determine where the machines cross and where the timber's brought out. You can't see these things unless you walk the site.
So it's like years, like yourself, it's experience that makes you better at your job. But what we've all noticed since it should be getting easier for us to run the business, but it's getting harder.
Yeah, but that's a huge problem. The expense and the cost and all that. But when you go in to do a job and there's a map that they're looking at and it says there's a drain there and it's an aquatic and there hasn't been water in it in 15 years.
And we will still bridge that.
Yeah, but that would drive you mad. That sort of bureaucracy would drive you mad. But it'd be like tomorrow morning if we were plastering a house and we brought in the plastering contractor. When the contractor would arrive, you wouldn't come along and say to the plastering contractor, "This is how you must plaster the house." All I would say is, "I have a house to plaster."
Yeah.
The likes of yourselves, the likes of Dunakachumi and all of those people, when they'd arrive in a job, sure, the person that owns the forest or even the actual forester wouldn't be saying to you, "Oh lads, this is how you must come at this now." Do you know? Like, I mean, he'd be saying, "Oh yeah, there's 30 acres to knock there, or there's 30 acres to sin. We'll do that for you now." And the person can literally go away and watch the timber start to arrive out on the side of the road. And he'll do it in the best way, the most efficient way, the way that'll do the least amount of damage, and that'll be the easiest on yourselves and your machinery.
I wish people knew that. They just look at us as in, we just tear up the whole place.
And I think that's what frustrates me the most about Coillte, myself. Because I've tried, haven't I?
Yeah.
I've got to Zoom meetings with them, and then when it comes to it, they just don't listen.
But we can't buy experience. I know a man that's up on a digger now today, and we won't say anything about names, but the man, he's over 80, right? And he's driving machines with over 60 years because he was under 20. So, and like, he's been driving a machine every day since then. Could you just imagine the amount of experience he has? Like, the biggest insult you could ever give to that man, any person, would be to go up to him today and say, "Do you not know, I think we should do that this way or that way." Like, how could we even dare insult his intelligence? Because he's seen everything. All we need to do is say to him, "That's the field. Them are the ditches. They're the dry-ins.
But do you know what?
That's the
There's
road.
Young lads now with qualifications would walk in with their notepad and they would tell him he's wrong.
I know, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
He would be 100% right in whatever he would say when it would come to his digger.
Yeah.
Because, like, could you imagine 60 years? There are many people in Ireland like that have been driving machinery for 60 years. Like, there's that many.
I'll get there.
A good one was years ago, I'd say 20 years ago, they changed the way the planting was done. And the contractors and the lads on the machines knew that this was going to be a disaster.
Windrow.
They were windrowing and mounting. Now, years ago when we started, say, with the machinery, it really took off around the 96, 97, 98. You could go in, you'd have 1 in 7, okay? So you have 7 rows of trees, a ditch or a little furrow, 7 rows of trees. But between them trees was dead level. Now they do a little sod, you know yourself, forestry, and they plant that tree into that. But it did help the plant and the tree to take off because it was lifting it off the ground from vegetation. So the trees took quicker. But what you have is you have staggered, instead of a row that a machine could take 1 row of trees.
Yes.
Okay, he's tinning line.
It's staggered then.
He was taking 2 in places, 3 in
But
places.
sure, nobody thought of it.
They didn't think, but
We got bigger too, though.
when the timber
Machines.
got high, then the trees, it blows quicker.
Yeah, and when
Because it's on a sod instead of in the ground. And that was the biggest mistake that ever was
But
done.
another thing that I could never understand about the windrowing then is like a pile of the stuff that's windrowed, right? Like could actually be shredded, you know?
in certain forests.
Yeah, in certain forests. And like, you know, no matter what would get per ton for it, no matter what would get, let it be a small amount of money.
Something.
Wouldn't it be something?
Yeah.
And it's tax free.
Yeah.
So like it's waste, and then the fact of letting it rot on the ground. But that's another thing. We'll have to stop talking about timber now in a second, Liz, because we should be talking about other things.
Women.
But like in forestries long ago, even state forestries, when a tree would fall. Now I know you have the issue with public liability and insurance and of course claims and all this racket. But like the one thing was, people were not just allowed, but they were also encouraged that any tree that had fall, it should be taken out. Do not to
Be firewood.
exactly, and to keep a place clean. But now the big thing is biodiversity. So that if a tree falls, people want it to rot. They want it to be there for how many years rotting in place. So biodiversity, that there's bees and all this, you know, in it. A load of rubbish. It makes a place messy. It makes a place dirty, having timber thrown across it like that. And it was a great thing to encourage the cleaning of forestries. It was like a form of thinning as well. If God thinned it, well, take it away out of it. But don't let it be there and crisscross like this. Sure, you've seen it yourselves.
Yeah.
Like, it's messy. Like, forests are lovely when they're managed, when they're maintained. But you can't just plant a forestry, walk away from it and say, oh, that'll be all right now, it'll be fine out.
Yeah.
Do you know? You have to
See, there used to be lots of forestry workers, obviously, on the ground. They're kind of gone, aren't they?
I'm from a small parish, and we had, I suppose, maybe up to 40 men working in the forestry. And we had a forester, Jerry Donegan, and an assistant forester, Jim O'Sullivan, and they were in our parish. And we had an office, right? We had a department office. It was only a house that was rented.
Quilter, like.
Yeah. Well, you see, it would have been the state, if you know
Oh,
what I mean.
yeah, the forestry.
It would have been the state itself that had the forests. And it was brilliant, and we had all that employment. Now we haven't one. We haven't one person.
See.
We have no forester. We have no assistant forester. We don't have an office.
So who looks after it now?
But sure, this is it. It's contractors will be brought in now and then. But sure, the micromanagement and the maintaining that was done in those forests at that time, it was great. Like,
Oh,
it
it was
was
great.
hard work. Like,
They
and
walked
they were
the
nicest.
woods and they made sure the water was flowing.
I remember they
and
used
it
to-
wasn't blocked.
I remember cutting timber that was all pruned.
Yeah.
The forest workers would have the forest pruned.
Yeah.
Do you know? It's lovely going, like.
Yeah. Oh, it was. It was great.
Do you want me to tell, before you move on from forestry, do you want me to tell you what will help every contractor and farmer in the country with forestry if you could change
I do.
it? Pay by the meter.
Through the head.
Yeah. Well, no. As you know,
We're spending fucking 600,000 on machines that have all the technology anyone needs, and
off the head, like.
yeah.
It is a debate that's going on. I have to answer your question honestly. It's a thing that we've discussed at the task force, which I put together to deal with the issue of all the timber that's on the ground. And there is a strong request, especially from the independent growers, like the private individuals who are foresters, and they are saying, why would Quilty be paid off the head, or why should there be a difference in the pricing structure? Now, I have to tell you that what I can encourage all different sides of this debate to come together and to discuss it and try and come to a solution. But as the person with responsibility for the sector, I can't be involved in that, because when it comes to money, when it comes to pricing, when it comes to all of that. But what I would say, I would like, and I have done it, I've said to them, look, the right thing for you to do is come together, go into a room somewhere and trash it out and debate it and see, can you come to a solution? But I can't be part of that discussion.
Do you know we're the only country that does it?
Yeah.
And say we do get into a room and we start trashing it out and debating. If some of these people don't come to that room, can someone step in then?
Well, I think
They have to come.
I think that the organisations involved, whether it's the sawmills or whatever, that I think people will have to talk. Look, there was a lot of trouble for many, many years above in the north. And because of politicians and because of religious people and because of a lot of other people, they thankfully came together and they talked and they talked and they came to a solution, which has resulted in that when we wake up in the morning, there's not people thankfully being blown up and killed in Ireland or in Northern Ireland. And we thank God for that. But are you telling me then that we can't agree about how timber is paid for? I mean, God damn it.
Yeah, we should be answered.
Yes, we're not looking to reinvent the wheel. So I take very much on board your point, and I would like to see it being debated, analysed, and see, is there common ground?
See,
there has to be, because it'd make forestry way more attractive if a lad thought he wasn't going to lose his whole money-wise.
Mm-hmm.
It'd make it so much better.
look, there's three parties involved. You have the contractor, you have Quilty, and you have the mills. And at some
and the farmer.
And you have the farmer.
Yeah, well, don't forget the private
We won't
farmer.
forget
It's
the
not all
farmer as
about
well.
Quilty. You have the private farmer who's...
But he gets caught the worst, actually, with that method of the ton.
He will now, because
To dry out, yeah.
But if you ask any farmer today, do you know, what did calves make last week at such a mart? And we'll just say, the first thing they'll say is, what weight are we talking about now? And they'll be talking about weanlings, they'll be talking about bullocks, they'll be talking about stores. And they'd be able to say to, oh, well, do you know, 320 kgs made so much, do you know. But if you said to a person today that owns forestry, if you said, what was timber making last week there? Do you know, what was boxwood making? What was pulp making? They wouldn't have a clue. Because we don't discuss the price of timber.
No.
Like you know about the price of timber, and you know exactly. And if I asked you what was timber 5 years ago versus now, what do you know, and all that, you'd know all about it. But if we went out onto the street and met a man or a woman who owns a forestry, and if we said, do you know how much a ton of timber is making? They wouldn't know whether it was 10 euros or whether it was 100 euros or 50 or 1,000.
And a lot of them, I say, wouldn't understand that you could have a lorry going out loaded to the absolute balls, right, with 28 ton on it, and if it was right and heavy, it could be 33 ton.
Yeah.
They don't understand the difference in when it gets light, you know, all that kind of thing.
Yeah. But,
education.
No, but like they're all very, very important points.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
In agriculture,
Mm-hmm.
if you had three things that you could change in forestry and agriculture in the time that you're in government, what would it be?
Okay. First of all, the schedule of payments, right? Like when you were working, if you were a teacher, if you were a guard, even at your job, even though it can be maybe difficult and slow to get paid times, you have a fair idea of the length of time. You know, if you come and do a forestry for somebody, or if we'll make a road for somebody, like there's a fair length of time that you will be paid, right? But unfortunately, with payments, and like this is a criticism. I don't think now I'm saying, oh, they are wrong. I'm saying this is our fault.
To the part of agriculture.
Exactly.
As in schemes.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And what I'm talking about is delays in payments. And again, I'm not criticizing anybody else. I'm accepting responsibility for this. Yes, it was a problem that we inherited, but right now it is our responsibility. The senior minister, Martin Hayden, is very, very anxious about this. And when you have schemes like Acres, and to think that, we have people since
Is that stopped? Sorry.
No.
Okay.
Since 23 that have not been paid their payments, I'd be very, very worried about things like that. Because when you're farming, you have your bills to pay, you have your contractors to pay, you have your fertilizer to pay, and like you need the money coming in.
You need your money coming in.
Cumbersome for people to farm.
Feel sorry for the older lads as well. A lot of paperwork now.
100%. And then the other issue then, of course, is transition. I want it to be attractive for young people to come into farming and for older people to get out of it.
Yeah.
And when I say get out of it, you should be able to remember maybe 20 or 25 years ago, there was a scheme, a retirement scheme. But the retirement scheme, it meant well, and the money now was fair enough. But one of the things that was in it, which was a horrible condition, was say that your father now was, after taking the retirement scheme, and you had taken over the farm.
Yeah.
That man was literally in dread of his life of being inside in the yard someday, walking across the yard with a bucket of nuts going feeding calves in case that he'd be inspected and caught farming.
So he wasn't allowed near it.
Correct. And that's the worst you can ever do. Just because you give somebody a retirement scheme, I mean, for God's sake, if a person wants to potter around, or if a man or a woman, if they're in good form and if they want to go out to the transport box and go out repairing an old fence of a day and stray a bit of wire.
A big help as well, like.
But sure, of course. And pottering around and doing little jobs. Sure, for God's sake, isn't that what normal people love doing?
They do.
Yeah. And being around a family.
What they've done all their lives.
Is the nicest thing in the whole world. And maybe what I'd call a bit of lighter work. So schemes that you would have in the future, you would have to make sure that you didn't do silly things like that.
Yeah.
You must, you can retire somebody, but still at the same time allow them
to be there.
Hobby farming, if you know what I mean.
So it has to be well thought out.
Suits them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
The inheritance tax is terrible, isn't it? Farmers that have to, I know some farmers that are the stress involved in moving the farm from the father to the son.
Well, one thing that drives me mad, it's just one of these personal little hang-ups I have, is when you would hear people saying, oh, do you see your man down the road there? God almighty, he's a millionaire. Because should you see the farm? 'Tis worth millions. That is an awful silly statement. Because that farm is actually worth nothing. Zero. It is worth no monetary money whatsoever. Because the only time it will ever become worth these millions is if it's sold.
And they won't sell it.
And people in Ireland, thankfully, I'm delighted that they don't sell land. Because it's what I said to you earlier, the farmers are the custodians of the environment. They want to keep it and pass it on to the next crowd. And people are silly when they go saying, oh, that farmer, he's worth millions. He's not worth millions.
Yeah.
What he or she is worth is whatever money they're able to make. When they pay their bills, what's left in, which might only be just the same as the wage of the fella driving the lorry down the road.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
It might start off at looking like big money, but when you start taking the payments that you have maybe for the loans that you borrowed to buy that extra field or to do that shed or to do this or that or the other.
They could have to wait 8 months to get the few bob.
Exactly.
Do you know?
So, I don't know, people, when it comes to inheritance, then yes, you're inheriting what could be classified as a valuable asset, but it's actually not. It's like giving a person a digger and saying, that's yours now, you're inheriting the digger, but you must go away. The digger doesn't make the money itself. The farm doesn't make the money itself. You must manage it, you must work it, you must drive it on. It's like your harvester. The harvester is only as good as how many hours we'll give a city up on it. It doesn't make money stopped. If the key isn't done, it's no good. If it's not making noise, it's not making money.
Yeah.
I know a poor fucker boys. He worked on a farm his whole life for his uncle, and when the uncle died, he was left it and he had to sell it. He couldn't afford to put into his name.
Well, there's only one good thing about that now. And I'm not being funny about this. Well, I don't know about the uncle, but...
You got to sell it.
No. Sure, the right thing to do now is marry the person.
Marry his uncle.
Marry his uncle's wife.
No, but just think about
That's
it.
a great idea.
No, but just think about it. The way this world is gone now, you could marry the person, and it doesn't matter whether it's a boy or a girl.
There's going to be a big hike on marriages now in the next...
When it comes to your spouse, it's a lot easier to marry a person than to have to pay inheritance tax.
Yeah.
Couldn't you get very fond of the person all of a sudden?
How many hours do you spend doing political stuff than the work stuff? Or how do you divide out your weeks?
I sort of mix and match it as good as I can, but you see, I don't like, as far as I'm concerned, by the way, I don't work at all because I like everything I do. So if you like what you're doing, like people that really like what they're at, get you up in the morning and go away doing something is not a drudge to them. They're actually looking forward to it.
Everything. Like when you go up to the Dáil, you know the way you see the bits where lads are firing abuse at you and you're getting all excited.
And how you don't want to jump out over that joke and retro.
Like we were only talking. Do you remember the interview you done with Ivan Yates? And he called you a leprechaun.
Oh, I know he did, yeah.
Like, how would you not leap over the counter and grab that cunt by the throat?
Because you see, to be honest with you, when a person does something like that, that's not a bad reflection on me. That's a bad reflection on the person.
But was he fine with you before that?
Yeah, but like, and again, I don't like being personal about somebody when they're not here to defend themselves. He would say that, he just did a robust interview and all this sort of thing. But like, it's like when you invite somebody on a radio program, right, or invite them on the television, yes, of course, ask them hard questions and tough questions.
You don't have to be nasty.
But you don't have to be nasty and you don't have to be belittling. And like, you see, this is the difference in people. That night, and I'll just talk about that night, I would have had plenty of things that I could have said back as quick as that. And I would have paralysed him with some of the things I would have said. And they wouldn't have been nice. And they wouldn't have been too complimentary to him. But I wouldn't do it. And the reason, I was a guest on a show. Yes, I was under severe attack, unwarranted, nasty, offensive, personally offensive. Bullying is what it actually was. But would it bother me? Not in the slightest. Because I'm a politician. I signed up for this. And you can't be thin-skinned about it. Would I think any less of the man? No, I wouldn't. Not really. But let's put it this way. I would say, try that again, and I won't be as easygoing the next time. And I can guarantee you one thing. He would never again subject me to what he subjected me to that night, because I would let him have it the next time. And I would have plenty to say that would stop him dead in his tracks. There is no point. You can be a tough interviewer. I've seen brilliant people interviewing politicians, and they can be tough and they can put you through. And if you're not good enough, that's good enough then for you. Do you know, if you make a mistake, and I've made plenty of mistakes. I've made more mistakes than anyone else. But like, at the same time, you don't expect, to be called nasty names and old stuff like that. That's all old rubbish. But that was a reflection on him and his aptitude. It wasn't a reflection on me. It was a reflection on him.
What's the most angry you ever were?
I suppose I like to think that I don't get angry very easily, right? And I'd like to think that I'm sort of easygoing. I like being nice to people. I like getting on with people. But there are sometimes people would test you. And when I say people, sometimes it can be a person in a job that it sort of goes to their head. Like people that have real power and that have real say in things. They're the nicest people in the world the majority of the time, because they're very easygoing and they don't exaggerate their own self-importance. But sometimes this is the person that has a little bit of power. They'd stand up on top of you and they'd make you feel like
because they're starving for power.
Yes, and that they really, are high on their role. But like people in real authority, I find,
aren't like that.
No, they're very nice people and very humble type of people. And I like dealing with people like that. I like having a debate with somebody, and we'll say, if I'm looking for you to do something, we'll say for a constituent of mine, somebody, it could be a health issue or whatever. I love the banter with the engineers and with the health, the executives and the people, the managers of the hospital. I love having the debate with them and, saying, you must try and do this now and we must try and do that, and trying to come around it and trying to help them then, by maybe getting a bit of funding for whatever they're at and all that sort of thing. But life is like a two-way street. But this sort of adversarial stuff and nastiness, like all I know, and I'm very, very conscious of this, a hole in the ground is going to hold every one of us. We're going to flip all inside in the hole in the ground when we go. Yeah. But the one thing that we will have is hopefully, nice memories that we got a lot of things done and that we had a bit of crack while we were doing it. And like, you can get all tied up then with this whole thing of, in politics, you can take it awful seriously. Like, and again, now you'll have people give you out about me that I'm being flippant. I'm not being flippant, because I deal with people at end of life and through various sicknesses and everything and heavy stuff now. But the one thing that's important is they do try and, have a bit of, I don't want to say laughter on the way, but even when people are down and when things are bad, you try and bring a bit of sunshine into their day in something that you say or something that you do, and like remembering, funny things that have happened. And like I deal with horrible situations, like, and bad family stuff that goes wrong and everything, but you would always try and have a bit of confidence for the people, and you can't go around with your head hanging, and you have to try. It has
to be a bit of upbeat somewhere.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. That's the word.
Who do you think is the most powerful person in the country?
That's a good question now.
Well, you see,
or is Europe?
I don't know. I mean, look, our political structure. I mean, we have our Taoiseach, we have our Taoiseach, we have our line out of senior ministers. We have the policy of government, which is the programme for government. We'll say the independents that are supporting this government, myself included, we had our say in the programme for government. I'd like to think that it's a good working document, and that when it's implemented, that the country will be the better for it. And so there are your political structures. But I mean, you asked a smart question. Who is the most important person in the world?
No, most powerful person.
Most powerful. All right. Well, I'll give you this answer.
Michael Healy-Rae.
No. But I'll give you this answer. The most important person and the most powerful person in the country. It's an objective question. And the reason being, if your family member, we'll just say your mom or your dad tomorrow, was inside in hospital, the most powerful person in the country is the person who's helping your mother or your father. And if they're sick, and the doctor who'll say, we must do this, we must do that, the nurse who'll administer this or that, isn't that person the most powerful person in the country?
That's a personal thing.
Yeah,
I'm thinking as a society, going forward, but who's the most powerful person in the country?
But as a society going forward, everybody is very important. Like the person who goes out this morning and stands outside the chipper and empties the bin that was overflowing. Isn't that person an awful important person?
It is, but
because if he or she's not there, we'll have rats there the next day.
But I work in forestry and I work in media. I'm in this weird zone that we ended up in both.
Sure, he must be weird people, so.
Look, everyone's weird.
There's
nobody as weird as me. But it's only when I start looking, and we do a Patreon every week, and people ask questions, and I get hundreds of questions every week, and I'm in the middle of media, and I've seen, maybe since the start of COVID, I really started noticing. It's like the control over what I say and what I do. And I'm only talking shy. I'm not saying anything important, right? So if I see that level of control, and then we're supposed to live in a democracy, and people now have been demonized for having opinions. You have this huge polarization. You're far right if you think, I really don't think that there should be 400 people that we don't know in a small little town. Or if you have a little bit, I don't think every child should be getting the vaccine. And maybe you were demonized. And then it turns out that people were right about certain things and nobody apologizes. It's like we don't have an opinion, or we're supposed to have a certain opinion. And when you're just a normal Joe and you're watching all this on television, you're there, just, I better not say anything. Even though I don't agree, and this is democracy, I
think
won't voice my
that must be
opinion.
hard on you, because you're fairly straight talk. And now you have to so watch what you say. It's just got ridiculous.
But you see, you don't have to watch what you say. My father always said this. Whatever, you can say what you like once it's the truth. But you would have to touch.
But truth is subjective.
Yes, but they would have to touch on something now that's very, very important. And I think it's actually the most important part of this interview. You have sort of hit on this thing about, is mainstream media suppressing people's opinions, right? You're wrong about that, and I'll tell you why. Mainstream media has a responsibility. So what I'm talking about is the televisions, the newspapers, the radios, they have a responsibility. And the responsibility is they have to tell what is true and factual, right? If they don't, they can be sued, and they are sued on a regular basis. Now, yes, of course, a mistake can happen. A person can make an error. A newspaper can write something and they can make some little error. The following week, they have to put in an apology. They're contacted by the people. They rectify it. They write it in an editorial or whatever, because they're responsible.
But you don't have to tell a lie. You just have to not speak about something.
But what about, are we going to talk at all about the lies that's said on social media?
There's loads. We all know that.
I used to always say long ago that the Healy-Raes have been accused of everything except murder. Now, I can't say that anymore. And I won't go into it. Why? Because that wouldn't be nice. But I'm saying it as a matter of fact now. I'm not able to say, I used to say that lightheartedly, or sure, we've been accused of everything bar murder. But no, I can't say that anymore. So I've seen so much rubbish and lies written about me. And what do I say then? And I'm told about it because I wouldn't waste my time looking at it myself. There's armies of people then will come along and they'll believe it. And they'll give their comment and their tuppence halfpenny. And not one word of it is the truth. Not one word of it. And why, if I was guilty of all these things, right? Why wouldn't it be in the national media? Why wouldn't it be in the newspapers? Why wouldn't it be on the television? Because it's not true. But there's a culture out there of people that like demonizing people. And again, criticism. I have no bother in the world. If a person calls me out and says, you voted on such a thing, or you said such a thing. And I'll give you an example. Killing foxes. Right? You would have people that would criticize me and say, well, you're a horrible person because you think it's all right for a farmer to go out and shoot a fox.
I got in trouble for killing a fox?
Yes. Well, I think that's fine. And if a person has a problem with me in that, sure, I respect that person very, very much. That person believes that the fox should not be shot, and that person is entitled to their view. But and so that's fine criticism and political open criticism. But when you have people that will literally come on and say things about a person, not just me, but other people, and it's not even just politicians, about people in general, and they will say things that are factually lies. And they think they can say it because it's on social media. And then you have the fella commenting on it, who we don't know his name because he's hiding behind something else. See,
that's the problem with social media. You give
the facelessness of it.
But you also give idiots a platform. They have a platform.
But from my opinion, I just think that I get loads of abuse online. You done a great thing on the Late Late Show, I think it was, where you explained you don't have time to be listening to people talking shy, and if you're that sad that you're sitting at home trying to pull people down, more fool on you.
Go away and do something constructive. Yeah.
But I think that the legacy media in the West has failed when the normal person doesn't trust them anymore. That's on them.
It is, but you see, trust is earned and trust is deserved where it should be going. But again, I'll say it: the mainstream media have a responsibility to tell the truth, and they have to take that very much on board, because if they tell a lie, they will pay for it. And
I think they're selective with what they talk about, and that's the same. If you're getting paid from the public to give all the information and you're not giving all the facts, we're only making decisions on half.
Well,
of the
RTE has
variables.
been a shit show anyway, really, hasn't it?
But you see, what about people being responsible for what they do themselves? If I pick up this phone and if I'm going to make a comment on Facebook about a person, and if I'm going to say, oh, well, they did such a thing, like, I should be able to be sure that what I'm saying is the truth. Not just because I see it on your page that you said, and then I'm going to say, oh, well, I heard he did that, all right.
Yeah.
Do you know? So that's rubbish. Like, have people any sense of fairness in life?
But that's technology. We're trying as a society to catch up on the technology that's passing us out. It's like social media now is the new going down to the pub, because people aren't going down to the pub. So people that have no lives get a little bit of a dopamine hit by saying something.
Weren't people a lot better off when they were going down to the pub?
A lot better.
Yeah.
We had Donald Byrne on here
That's
the
rude.
other night, and he has a bar in Mayo, Eileen's Bar, and he was just saying that the pub was it wasn't about getting drunk, it was about socialising with older people and connecting with the community.
Pubs had nothing, rural pubs definitely had nothing in the world what to do with drink. It wasn't for drink, it was for company. It was a social outlet. And like, there were people, they would time their going to a pub by somebody else's clock, because they'd know, oh, if I go at 9 o'clock now,
Johnny will be there.
I'll meet your man and he's great back.
Yeah.
And I'll find out about how they got on at the silage, or how did they get on at this, or how did
Bit
they,
of crack.
what way was the mat, and it would have all that sort of thing. And politics, women, everything, religion, it was disgusting.
It wasn't
Did you
drink.
meet your woman in the pub?
No,
Dance?
at a dance, yeah.
Was it Sean Cuddy?
No, I don't know who was playing at the time, but no, I like the whole culture of Irish living, the way we've evolved. But I never thought in my wildest dreams that this apparatus could take over so many people's lives.
Well, wait till you get a load of AI.
But
Are you worried about that?
But there are people that their lives are absolutely consumed by their phone. And you see, the phone is such a handy thing. Like, obviously to make our calls, but to be able to see an email, to be able to send an email, to be able to take a picture of this room.
Get
and
closer to
send
the
it-
micro. We won't be able
Sorry,
to do
and
that.
to send it to somebody in Australia. So that's a brilliant
It's
thing.
unbelievable, yeah.
But then the rubbish that follows it, do you know? And of course, the other group of people we haven't mentioned at all is children, younger people.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be very worried about, do you know, the little boy or little girl that they could be a little bit heavier than maybe what they're supposed to be. And then somebody says it about them on a telephone. Or maybe they could, you know, have bigger
That's
ears
bad.
than the other boy. And like simple, silly things that should mean nothing. And if there's something dirty said about them on the phone, that could be so upsetting
Well,
to a
look,
little boy or
there was
girl.
a time you could only be bullied in a place. Now you can be bullied at home in your own bedroom.
Yes, and that is horrendous. But like, I think no more than the responsibility that the mainstream media has of telling the truth, the platforms that are putting up and allowing these things to be put up. And of course, you'll have people jumping up and down now and saying, am I in favour of censorship? No, but I am in favour of the truth being told. And I'm against people who are making like a career out of telling lies.
And abuse.
And like, they're like preachers over in America or something long ago, do not go around, do not, the world is ending tomorrow. And like, it's all doom and gloom and horribleness and the negativity, and it's all putting down somebody else. Like, you know, even we'll say, when I was in opposition, like, I agreed with other politicians who were in government because they might have something very good to say. But sure, I mean, if we have people in Ireland today on social media platforms, and I mean, if a person found a solution for every cancer known to man, they'd still come along and criticise him because they'd find something wrong with him, because they'd find something wrong with everybody. Nobody's right all of themselves. And they have an absolute monopoly on being honest and being truthful because they believe nobody else is. And like, that's rubbish. They'd better want to go away and take a good look in the mirror.
But you can see how the manipulation of things on the phone, and everyone has so many different opinions and they'll take certain things from it. It stops people like you. Like, you are the only main politician that said to come on here.
Oh yeah, but I do no problem in the world of coming on, and do you know why? The one policy that I'd have, and I come in here to this room, is tell it as it is. tell the truth, answer the questions the best way you can, and get on with it. But like, there is nothing wrong with talking, provided that you're fair. Do you know, it's like you asked the question about Ivan Yates. What did I think of that? I gave you a fair answer, quite simply, because it's what I believe. I believe he was wrong, but at the same time, he had a job to do and he did it. And wasn't he very smart in another way? Here we are, how many years later, and we're talking about him. So
it worked.
It worked.
So when you go up to the Dáil and before you all go in to your sessions, are you all chilling out in the front or chatting, or
Are you friends?
Yeah,
Are you friends, like?
people often say that. I told you at the very beginning, every person, whether you were on a council or in the Dáil, you're elected. So you have a right to be there. And again, it comes back to people saying on social media and things, oh, this corrupt government. There is nothing corrupt about the government. The government are entitled to be there because they got elected. Some people chose to be part of making up government. Other people didn't. People just like being in opposition. I liked being in opposition, but when I saw an opportunity to be in government, yes, I wanted to be in government because of the simple fact I like responsibility. I like being able to do things. And yes, of course, you will get criticism, but that's fair enough. But with regard to how do people get on, some people would be so politically ideology, I don't know, from an ideology point of view, they'd be opposed to each other. They mightn't actually talk. But like, I'd like to think that I'm the type of person that I can have a debate with somebody, a row with somebody, and I certainly would talk to them afterwards. Now, they mightn't talk to me. And I know there are a number of individuals inside the Dáil, and I continuously say hello to them because out of pig iron I'd say hello to them, even though I know I'm going to get nothing back. But they're far and few between. The majority of politicians that are in Dáil or in local authorities throughout the country, they're responsible people. They know they have a job to do. We all have a job to do, and we just get on with it. And isn't it so easy to smile at somebody and say, hello, how are you doing? How are things?
I'd say there is a huge disconnect, though, between the city and the country, isn't there? Isn't it getting a bit bigger?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
A divide between the cities and the country.
Well, I'd like to try and bridge that in a way. And remember, I'm the person who continuously said that, you know, outside the Red Cow roundabout, there's people who think we don't exist and all of that. But like, I mean, when I'm fighting about rural post offices and keeping them open, we also have a problem with urban post offices. We actually have a problem in keeping urban post offices alive. So there's pubs inside in cities who are equally dying on their feet as much as rural pubs. So, you know, the problems, and then, you know, people think that I have a hang up about people that are from a city and things. I mean, I've been in the Liberties and places in Dublin, and God almighty, sure, we'd meet the nicest people in the whole world.
Oh, yeah.
And we'd meet lovely people. And I used to cycle around Dublin until they stole my bike. And and I used to meet a lot of people that way because I literally stop and talk to people. And do you ever see Crocodile Dundee?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, well, I'd be a little bit like Crocodile Dundee.
You carry a knife.
This is my knife.
No one knew that. No knife. No, I'd talk away to people if I saw them. If I saw a bit of friendliness in a person's face at all, I'd say, hello, how are you doing? Or if I go for a walk late at night, and I'm sure I probably often spooked a person maybe on their own because they're not used to people talking to them. But it's really nice to talk to people.
Do you know what does frustrate people like me? And, you know, lads are, you know, every 2 months you're paying your VAT and you have these big tax bills and you're trying to run your business and you have staff. And then say we'll take the bike shed up in Dublin and you just want someone to say, who signed off now? Like, yes. Surely it only takes 2 phone calls.
A little bit of accountability. Yeah, yes. Someone should nearly get a boot in the hole. This is the civil servant
that done this. You know, they're going to be penalised. But no one ever tells that. And you know they know.
Yeah. But you see, I suppose in situations like that,
you know, don't you?
Mistakes happen. Things, cock-ups happen. And like, I've made plenty of mistakes in my life. Political mistakes, every type of mistake. And all I'd hope is that when something as serious as that happens and it just sticks in people's throat, like, because money is scarce, you want to see money being spent wisely and sensibly, and you don't want public displays of nonsense. So I'd be hoping that we've learned from that.
I know, but if you done it, you'd be on the paper on the Monday morning.
Oh, but I know. What
I'm saying is the civil servant that done it won't.
Same as a manager of a football team, though. They kind of take the hit, don't they?
There's people that like to blame me for the bad day.
I'm going to ask you a few rapid fire questions. They're quick ones.
It's a very big book for a small amount of questions.
I do have a lot of people in, and I pick and choose whichever ones I think suit. What's the best compliment you ever received?
If people are sick, and if you're successful in making their journey through their sickness a bit easier, when people in the family would say afterwards, it meant a lot what you did and what you were able to help with. That's more important than all the money in the world. So, and it's more important than all the compliments in the world. And it needn't be any song or dance about it. And it could even be as sad as at a funeral, that the person would say, well, you made a difference. And that to me is a big deal.
Tell me something you think is true that almost nobody agrees with you on.
Something?
Tell me something that you think is true, but almost everyone you talk to doesn't believe you.
Oh, yeah.
The world is flat.
Conspiracy theory. Twin Towers.
I don't know. There's an awful lot of instances of things like that. Something that's true, but everybody thinks is not true.
Yeah.
And you know it's true.
Okay. Well, all right. I'll give you probably the most controversial answer you could get. The very, very vast majority of politicians, no matter where they're coming from or whatever political parties or non-parties, they're exceptionally genuine people. They're not in politics for money or anything like that. They're in politics because they believe in helping people. And I know people who are politicians and they could have done several things with their lives. And they could have made a lot of money in the private world, and they didn't because they went into politics and they wanted to serve people, be it locally or nationally. And a pile of people would not agree with that. And they'd be, you're self-serving, you're in it for the money. Rubbish, nonsense. There are people who would be far more successful and they'd have an easier life and they wouldn't be on the front of the paper and what they're saying or doing wouldn't be scrutinised, but they wouldn't have any other way because they like helping people and they like helping Ireland. Whether it's on the local authority or whether it's in the Dáil, they like improving things and they like doing something and not on a telephone raving about it.
What's the last thing you Googled on your telephone?
I'd only Google things that really are important to me. So if I was going meeting somebody and if I wanted to know more about them, I might Google them, or it could be an issue. I'm not great at... I have a problem with, not as bad now as what it used to be, but like I am dyslexic. So I sometimes have to Google things that another person mightn't have to Google because it could be something very easy for you to understand, but I might have to get a bit of help for myself in knowing.
Do a bit of research.
Exactly. And it isn't now that I'd be bogging it.
A lot of people do that.
Yeah, but it could be something very simple for somebody else, but it can throw me a bit. So sometimes I'd be looking at a thing that other people mightn't have to look for.
What's the most painful thing you've ever been told?
There was one period in my life where a number of people that would have been, we'll say, cornerstones in my life, and they all got sick at the same time and they all died very much within the same time frame. So, like, one of them would have been my mother. Another person was Bernard Collins. Bernard was with me every day and every night. And then there was Arthur Linehan. I suppose he did over 1 million miles or kilometres or something in cars with me and on the road day and night. So I had a number of hits like that in a very short time frame. And I was literally going from one bed to another bed in a different place. And there was a culmination of things. And like, if you have people that are on the phone that you're talking to several times in a day, and they're like an extension of yourself, or you're like an extension of them.
And then they're gone.
And then all of a sudden they're gone, and something happens, and it could be something funny, You know,
You go to make a phone call.
and you go to make a phone call, and then you all of a sudden you think to yourself, Jesus Christ, like, what am I doing? You know, the person is gone.
Big void.
A massive void. But like, everybody goes through that. And like, so it isn't pity about me. Like, what about people who lose their children? You know, so there's awful serious things happen. And those sort of things, they're a leveler, like they test your head. And people talk about, you know, mental illness, and they talk about being upset, and they talk about all that sort of stuff. And people go through a lot. And I deal with families with different issues, like, you know, people who are anorexic and all these different things that happen. But there's an awful lot of problems out there, and people need support. And when things go wrong, your head can misfire. You know, it is like the wiring. It is like a digger can go on fire. You know, a wire can touch off something else. Well, inside in your head, like, your head is wired, is programmed. And sure, a wire can touch inside in your head off of something it's not supposed to touch off.
Bit of a short.
A bit of a short. And that can lead into you being upset, doing things that might be irrational, you know, not you. And it can throw you off your game. And that can be through death or illness or all the other things that happen in life. And you have to be very tough for this world, you know.
Mm.
And like, people often look at me in the eye and they'd say, how will we get through this? And what I always say is, you just must put down your head. You have to work on. I really passionately believe in work. I really, really do. And people who have an awful event in their lives, like, I'd be back to them very shortly afterwards, like, and I'd be saying, you know, I know it's very hard now. And like, the employers are great. And do you see, it'd be different for you now tomorrow morning. If something was to throw you off your game, when you're self-employed, it's sort of a bit different. But people that are in jobs, the people would be very kind, and they'd be saying, no, stay at home now. Mary, don't come in at all. Come in whenever you're ready, right? I'd be the exact opposite. I'd be saying to Mary, now, Mary, the right thing to do here is the first day that you can, back up on the bicycle again and back to...
So we talked about that. We just say, when our father passed, we were back to work. The next day, we were gathering up the signs and tidying up around home and getting everything, and we were back cutting timber the next day.
Timber wasn't Alcoa itself.
Yeah.
Should be better going back to work. But to what you said there, what is going to happen now when we have chaps getting medals for coming 10th? We're reminding them like babies to get no hardship. What happens then when they hit the real world? It's going to hit them hard, because life is hard, and I think we're mothering them so much.
We're
now.
a bit tougher than the newer generation.
You know,
Yeah, I know what you were saying. You were sort of talking about the mollycoddling nature of things. You see, it all depends. Monkey see, monkey do. If children see a work ethic at home, and if they see people, you know, being responsible, doing things, and, you know, like, we're only all functionaries. Every person is only a functionary. We're only all, and it's like you saying, who's the most important person in Ireland? Sure, like, everybody is important. Every single solitary person is important, and everybody has something to offer. But it's trying to encourage our young people and to make them understand that if you're not brilliant at school, like, and if you're not, we'll say, academically minded, sure, for God's sake, that might actually free your mind up to concentrate on more important things, because there's so much work to be done there. I mean, could you imagine if anybody could have the opportunity of being 14 again, say, and starting from 14, but with the knowledge that's in your head today? I mean, the service industry, you look at what you could do with that.
So, Michael, I was looking at pictures the other night of myself when I was 3 years old playing, and I was there, look at me, fucking playing, and I should have been investing in property and Bitcoin. I was fucking raging with myself.
Bitcoin didn't exist when we were 3. But so there's so many opportunities out there for people, especially young people now today. God almighty, there's the world of opportunities. But you have to be willing to rise out, and like, you needn't be born with a golden spoon in your mouth or anything like that. All you have to do is the ability to believe in yourself, and that you can achieve anything.
What's your favourite quote?
I suppose my favourite quote is like 0 to 100 is an awful short length of time. It's a lousy length of time, like 100 years, and that's the most you can hope for. So just remember, every hour is precious. Every single solitary hour. You should never waste an hour, because like you'll never again get it back. You are going to run out of time before you run out of money. That is an absolute fact.
What's the best lesson you ever learned from your parents?
I suppose to be diligent about what you do, and to be responsible about what you do, and always try and do your best. Don't ever purposely set out to hurt anybody. Like, always have it in your head, I must try and help. Try to be kind. And that doesn't mean being a pushover, like, because like you have to fight back too sometimes, and you were talking about mollycoddling, like you have to sometimes get a bit tough in situations, you know?
Yeah.
Like sometimes sure you could be on the phone and all a person need to do is tell you the truth and tell you the facts, but they'd be trying to skirt around it, and it could take half an hour to do what you could do in 3 minutes.
Just say it.
Just say the goddamn thing and tell the facts.
What's your biggest fear?
Well, at the moment, I wouldn't like to die. And it isn't that I'd be afraid of dying, but like dying is no problem, but just not now.
Do you believe in God?
Absolutely.
You arrive up to heaven and God says you can talk to whoever you want first. Who are you talking to?
I suppose I'd like to talk to my parents.
What would you say to them?
I'd say, tell me what has been happening since, and why didn't you ring me or let me know what this place was like?
Give us a heads up.
Yeah.
All that worry.
Yeah, and like, why didn't he make some contact, like, and why keep it all a secret? And like, why is it that we don't know exactly what happens? I've been thinking about all the people that have died over the years, and nobody has actually told us what's happening.
No.
It is crazy.
Do you think that, say, all the stuff that we talk about on phones and just community, it's in community and getting on with your neighbours and knowing a few people the most important thing? Do you know when you just get on with people and you...
But God Almighty, do you know, you're a very smart man.
No, Greg, do you see that? That means I get a raise.
Yeah.
But he didn't say you weren't a bollocks.
Is Greg in charge of finances? No, but you know why you're very...
He's in charge of finance, he's in charge of my life.
But your neighbours are so important, because I see over the years, you know, people who are living maybe in a remote area, and the person that's nearest to them, they don't talk or they don't get on. Like, I adore my neighbours, we'll say, and I have lots of neighbours, because I'm in different places, you know, where I live, and then where the farm is, and different things I have around the place. And your neighbours are so important, and having good neighbours and neighbours that you can talk to. And it's the simplest thing in the world. If we're all stuck for something, or they were stuck for something. And always remember, if you fall down on the ground, more than likely, law of averages, it might be in your own place who will fall down, and who will pick you up?
Neighbour.
Your neighbour. So your neighbour is worth whatever there would be in gold. That's what they're worth. You can't buy a good neighbour, like, you know, it's just a unique thing. And you see, what I love about my neighbours is we wouldn't be in each other's hair at all. Like, it isn't that we'd be living in each other's pockets. But I know, and they know, that any hour of the day or night, I want you, come on quick. Like, 'twill be a case of...
See, the country's grand, but I'd say in the cities, the neighbour thing is probably not... It probably is in all the states and things, but probably not as...
It's not as big a thing.
No,
but not as big, I suppose. But then again, like, sometimes you'd hear very nice stories about city life and little communities in cities. And, you know, I know that in towns like Kimera and Killarney, which are, of course, you know, they're big enough, and there'd be a great sense of camaraderie between GE and sport and different things. And, you know, like my own mother, when she lived in Killarney and she was in the active retired, and, you know, they used to go, you know, playing bingo and all these different things. I must tell you one funny story about my mother. My mother gave up driving when she was in her 70s because she said she couldn't see at night. But Mrs. O'Donoghue, she'd been, you all know the Gleneagle Hotel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, we'll say the original founders of the Gleneagle, the lady was Mrs. O'Donoghue. And Mrs. O'Donoghue was in her 90s. And remember now, my mother was in her early 70s. So I'd say to my mother, where are we going out tonight? And she'd say, well, we're going to, and this could be a bad winter's night, we're going to Fussing out tonight, but I'm all right because Mrs. O'Donoghue collecting me. Like Mrs. O'Donoghue was in her 90s and she used to be coming collecting my mother because Mrs. O'Donoghue was not afraid of driving in the dark.
The blind leading the blind.
Exactly, yeah. And they used to pick up all these other old ladies along the way and they'd all head off, merrily playing their bingo or bridge or whatever they were at. But you're like, so you do have sort of, it's like ecosystems in towns and in built up areas. They do have people who click together and bingo's great, Bingo's great for people. And
or 25 and all them things.
And, all that sort of thing.
Is it true your mum was born in America?
Yes.
In Delaware?
Yes.
And then moved to New York?
And she worked in the Empire State Building for the Syrian consulate. She could speak 7 languages.
Actually, you're not Irish, though.
Well, I don't know. I think I am.
She's a fair woman.
She was, what I used to always say was she could speak 7 languages and then she had a son that could barely manage one.
And is it true you have shares in the New York Times?
That would be true.
Is that true?
That would be true.
That is a cool statement.
But
do you believe in aliens?
No, I don't believe in aliens.
Have you ever seen anything that you couldn't explain?
I have, but there would always be a rational explanation for what would be seen.
What about ghosts?
I don't know. I wouldn't really believe in ghosts. But there are things that would spook you. Of course there would.
Like you wouldn't go digging in a ring fort, would you?
Oh, no, I wouldn't do that. No, I would not. I did one night, all right, have to go into a graveyard and go digging late at night.
Not nice.
No, but it was for a purpose. I was burying a part of a person, legally and above board, no, I might add.
Luckily you added that.
It was a person that was after having an operation and he requested that the piece of his body be buried with his parents, and I was asked to oblige. But it had got dark by the time we got around to doing it, so we were inside with flashlights at his parents' grave.
If someone had to tip into the thought there was something really weird going on here.
Yeah. It was nice not to be on your own, though.
Who would you like to fight? If you could fight someone now in the doll, who would you like to fight? Just an above board little bare knuckle boxing.
Real boxing man.
Boxing?
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't be strong enough to box anybody. They'd kill me stone.
Well, say if they didn't hit you back.
You telling me Simon Harris should kill you? Come on now.
Ginny Mac, I couldn't go fighting Simon Harris. He's a nice man. Ginny Mac, we could kill each other inadvertently or something. No, I'd rather not go fighting anybody, really.
Do you find it hard sometimes when some people are talking, we won't mention names, him and Ryan, and would you ever start, oh God, don't laugh now, the cameras will pick me up.
I don't know, but it's when some people would say something that would be so outrageous and ridiculous that it just wouldn't make sense. And you'd start to say to yourself, sure, they're not serious. And then all of a sudden you realise that they are serious. And when people would make statements like that, none of us should have cars. We should have, 10 cars in the local village and we should all cycle to the cars and we should pool the cars and all that sort of rubbish. Like how would that be supposed to work? And that we should never see a hungry day again because we should plant our seeds on south-facing windowsills and things like that and grow lettuces and eat.
You wouldn't know whether to hug him or slap it.
Well, no, but it's very hard to take a person seriously when it comes to policies. But then on bigger stuff, say energy security. This government is doing great work with regard to energy security, and policies have changed. And this government is being very, very sensible in regard to energy security. But in the past, there wasn't common sense. I mean, these talks about large batteries being brought in and the rubbish that was spoken about by certain individuals, it was frightening. It had no basis whatsoever in reality. Like, we have hospitals. We need to keep power. We need to have light. We need to have heat. We need to protect the people that are here. And there was, people talking rubbish about how we were going to achieve that. But that is not the case now. The government are being sensible about it.
What's your hobbies? What do you like doing when you're not doing work?
You see, I like everything I do. So my work is my hobby in a way. But guns, I'd be into shooting. of various different types, and I'd be.
Are you in time? Have you to go?
No, you were fine. I'm not saying nothing to you.
That's grand.
No.
That's grand. I thought your phone was buzzing.
No, you were fine.
Phone's always buzzing.
So you into shooting?
Yes.
Do you ever go out foreign shooting?
No.
You should. I know a few lads now. A few friends of mine go out to Sweden and places shooting deer.
And should they go out shooting to places like Bolivia? I think shooting wild boar and sure people going to Scotland and all that sort of thing. I'd like to, but it's a time thing, and I'm not a great traveller.
Why do you hate travelling?
Ireland is a beautiful place.
There's plenty of things to shoot in Ireland anyway. You don't have to go.
There's plenty of deer you can shoot
You don't
down.
have to go that far.
Yes, our deer population is a bit of a problem, all right.
I hear the only our only deer that's native to this country is actually in Kerry.
Mm-hmm. I know, but all breeds of our deer, the population has exploded. We actually needed a 70% reduction in our deer population to bring it under control.
That's a
and
lot.
to put it back. But it is a lot, but it is not an exaggeration.
Yeah.
And I spoke with people over the weekend who are involved in deer management, and they could not disagree with me, because until we go along and do a thermo imaging of we have to quantify the problem to be able to address it. No one can tell you with authority how many deer are in Ireland today, but we can do it. It can be done. Like, we were able to run satellites over the country and micromanage exactly how many, down to the half acre, how many hectares of trees are knocked in Ireland today. And we have an absolute crystal clear image of that. And we know exactly what it is. We know the divide between public and private and all of that.
Could you do that with the deer?
But of course we could. But how you do it is you do it at night.
Infrared
and all of that. And there is, I've spoken to the experts who can do this, and they're 100% confident they could identify exactly how many deer. And I can guarantee you one thing: if you knew how many deer were in Ireland, you wouldn't be long saying that I'm right with my 70% figure.
I think that the deer are the biggest problem with cattle getting TB now, not badgers.
Sleeve blooms is covered.
Well, I have to give you the department line on that. Even though personally I'd agree with you, but the department, we are told that is not factual. I'm not saying I agree with it, but we are told that is not the truth. One of the biggest reasons we have such increases, and we're up now on 6.7%, and we were as low as maybe 4.1 or 2%.
On TB?
Yes. So when you were up on those figures, Minister Hayden rightly has made it an issue that we have to decline the numbers. And in dairying has got so intensive, movements and all of that. Yes, badgers to a certain degree, deer to a lesser degree, believe it or not, are the causes of the spread of TB. But whatever measures will have to be taken, this department will do what is necessary. I'm worried about things like the price of cull cows, that that we're going to have knock-on effects that will hurt farmers. But at the end of the day, we have to protect our reputation nationally and abroad, and we have to do so by trying to reduce the number of infections in herds.
I actually don't know an awful lot about it, but so TB is of the lungs.
Mm-hmm.
And when a beast goes down with TB, it can go to the factory, can be chopped up and eaten, and you can stay milking cows to have TB, can you?
Well, you see, I'll give you an example now. We tested yesterday at home for TB, and we'll be checked now again on Thursday, right? And all we're hoping is that you won't have a reactor. But if you have a reactor, not only does it affect you, it affects all our neighbours, your closest neighbours, and actually even a good bit away from them. And it really restricts, and you see what it does, and in particularly then to people who might have animals that are ready to sell. You have so much of a period then that you're held up. But that is actually going to get tighter. The rules are going to get more stringent, where you have an outbreak and maybe a repeat outbreak. But do I support the minister in what he's doing? I absolutely do, because it's not nice, it's not good, but it's like a problem. When you have an issue, you need to deal with it, and sometimes you have to be tough in trying to protect something. And you are for the good of agriculture in Ireland. And like everyone in the department will tell you, we have to work at this problem. You know?
Yeah, it's another stupid question. But if you can eat it, you can drink the milk out of it. What difference does it make?
Because if you, oh God, don't start me talking about TB now, because I could give an hour talking about this, because we've given hours and hours debating this, and
who are you debating it with?
The new rules. Well, say with the department, the senior minister took this on board as being an awful problem, and it is an awful problem. And thankfully, he brought together all the stakeholders. He brought together the farming organisations to discuss it, and to discuss the proposals that he has himself and his officials in the department, working in conjunction with veterinary people throughout the country. We have to arrest the increase in the numbers, and it is a big, big problem. Like I say, I would have always thought that the deer were a big cause of it, but the statistics, when deer are actually tested and all that sort of thing, the stats don't back up what I would have thought. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Simple as that.
The numbers don't make sense for me. You know, you have people around. I never see a badger, very rarely, and I can't go out of the wood without turning off the lights, putting the coat over the dash, and driving out real easy in case they run into the top of the van.
The woods are wicked.
Well, I know. Go back. Why'd you put your coat over your dash?
Because the lights would blind you. Because you have the lights turned off going out. During the winter now, we would have to, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
If you turn on the lights, the deer, they're not even afraid of the machines anymore. They're not even afraid of you. They'll run into the car. I actually have a video of me and Greg coming out of the wood, and the deer jumped up onto the bonnet of the new van.
I've hit 3 deer in the last 2 or 3 years. Yeah, and I actually find that they run for you. They're just, they're
psycho deer.
They're psycho deer.
Yeah, they're on a kamikaze mission. The only thing, I suppose, if a war flashed and the old gun could shoot them and they'd be coming at you.
I need to get a bigger gun.
Hey, why do you need, like, people are paying huge money on the Sleep Blue Mountains for the rights to shoot deer.
Yes.
Why don't you just let everyone up and shoot them?
Well, but you see, because again, you have to be responsible. Our licensing laws are very rigid with regard to guns, and I support that. You have to get Section 42 licenses, as you know. You can shoot red deer if you get the permit for them, which is perfectly acceptable if they're causing a nuisance on your land. So I would encourage the shooting of deer, but obviously in an organised and proper way by responsible people.
They're hard on forestry. They eat saplings. They're not good around the place.
But they're not good for anything.
No.
And like having a small amount
don't tell Santi that.
Having a small amount of them is fine, but not the population that we have at the moment. It is unsustainable what is there, because when you see them coming down onto the edges of roads, running out on the roads in front of people, the amount of deaths and serious injuries, it's very, very serious.
See, Eamon Ryan was on about bringing back the wolf. maybe we should look into that now again.
Do you like a drink?
No, I haven't had a drink with 9 or 10 years now.
Oh, when you were drinking, were you a pint man or top shelf man?
Cider.
Bulmers.
Yeah, you can't buy this either.
Bulmers.
I didn't drink for 12 years. Then I turned 13.
That is smart, yeah. But I'm not a prude now when it comes to drink. It isn't that I don't like. I love to see people drinking, and I've no anxiety to drink now. But I'd love to think that I live long enough that I will be able to drink, because, but it's just when we're at this type of a job,
you can't really.
I don't think it's not helpful to the situation. So that's why I said I would not drink anymore.
These next questions now are going to cause an awful lot of controversy, right? Are you ready?
Oh, yeah. Well, they won't if I don't answer them.
What's the best digger?
Oh, well.
Don't be shy now.
No, I won't. I like.
Speak into the microphone now.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. High touches, and then of course with the smaller diggers, then the likes of the Takahouchis are good. Kubotas back in the day were the main mini diggers as they were at the time, and then they're clipped a bit by the Takahouchis. Bigger machines, then of course you have the Case, you have the Rolls Royce, of course. You have,
Volvo.
Yeah, they'd be very good, but
Where do you find the cut-off point for big digger? Where are you saying a big digger is? After 25 ton?
Well, yeah, because sure, anything bigger, you're onto real big stuff then, like the big bypasses and stuff. I would have a thing of 17, 80 and 100 ton. But, and of course, for quarries then, sure, you need weight. You have to have weight to drive a rock breaker, or to even for loading, like. But no, look, diggers have improved an awful lot anyway. There isn't many rubbish diggers anymore. You know,
they'll go well.
You look at me now like we don't agree.
No, I was at a quarry show at the weekend, a construction and quarry show at the weekend in Tullamore. And when I was quarrying, there were all quarry equipment and all these different makes of diggers, and I just can't go over the size and the different types of makes that I never heard of. There's all these Chinese crowds coming in, and
there is, yeah. But no, diggers are very good. Sure, simple things. I remember one time when we were up on a digger, and if we stuck the bucket in the ground, now people that wouldn't know about diggers, they wouldn't know what we were talking about, but if we were stuck and we just needed to give ourselves a pull, and we put our arm out and we cut the ground and we went pull yourself and we went tracking, right? The way the pumps were, you couldn't do that.
Didn't have the power.
No, yeah, she actually wouldn't do it. You couldn't track and pull at the same time. Which, of course, every lash digger in the world can do it now.
Yeah.
But so that, imagine going back that far.
You're going back to Himax.
Yeah.
Can you remember your first brand new digger?
No, linkages. It was linkages, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It wasn't servos.
Servos.
Yeah. So, like, you had wear then, if you can remember. And so you could have a situation here, you'd have put two handles here, and like you could be going outside to
you'd have to open the door.
To swing, because you'd have so much wear, and like your hands, you were like, oh Jesus Christ, it was great exercise. Like, whereas now today you're literally sitting down here and you're only touching,
tiny, and the movement will be slim.
Exactly. So, and then of course, but there's great improvements now in then the the diggers then with the. What to call it? This,
satellite navigation.
Satellite navigation.
Keeping levels and stuff.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And like you can literally, the computer will tell you what way you should be going. But again, coming back to the man that's driving the digger with 60 years, I make out he has his computer already installed. It's in between his 2 years.
Natural.
What's best? Do you move your stuff with lorries or tractors?
Both.
All right. What's the best tractor?
Well, I don't know. It's a debate. Sure, all tractors are good now. Again, all new stuff is good.
Oh God, that's a politician's
Does it make
answer.
you absolute? Do you be amazed at the price of the gear now?
Sure, stuff is frightening. Sure, like if we're talking about a tractor now, and if we're buying a new tractor or something, sure.
€1,000 horsepower.
Yeah, exactly. 140,000 is no notice.
Every horsepower now is €1,000.
And like my father started out with a grey 20
Pergs.
Yes, the first tractor I had. Ask me how much it cost me.
Well,
what was it?
I'm gonna say because me outlet bought a mower and a grey Ferguson one time, and it was probably one of them, them mowers.
Yes.
And I think he gave 600 bob for him.
The first tractor that I bought, it cost me nothing because I stole it. Fact. And I had a very good reason for stealing it. My mother was my accomplice. She dropped me off at the collection point where I stole it from.
Americans.
Because a man had done an awful dirty thing to me. I was only a young fella, like, and a man had got me to do a job, and he had got me to paint his house inside and out and to provide the paint. He set me up, like, right? Sure, who was I to be buying paint for another man's house? Like, I had no money. And I went to the hardware shop and said, would he give me the paint? I'll be paid right away when I finish this job. And I owed for the paint for his house. And he forgot to pay me. And I had been on to him and no good, no money. And
he didn't forget.
I knew he had a grey 20 that I liked. So I got my mother to drop me off at the house. And I started the tractor. Thanks be to God, it started. He was away. I used to know his timing. And I drove the tractor home, and when I had the tractor brought home, I rang the guards inside in Khmer, and I told them the story. I said, I'm so-and-so, I'm after stealing a tractor. And the guard, very nice man, God be good to him, he's above in heaven, and he said, why did you do that? And I told him the story. I told him from start to finish. And you know what he said to me? You didn't steal anything, he said. And all I hope is that the man that you took the tractor from, I hope he'll come to me, he said, and I'll put him right, he said. Do you see? So, sure, your man never paid me and I never gave him back his tractor. And, I was way happier with the tractor than the money.
Cheers. What year was that?
It was a long time ago.
What age were you?
What age?
I was young.
What age are you now?
I'm 58.
You look well for it. Do you exercise?
No, not as much as I'd like to. I like walking, but I don't get to walk no more at night because I'd be
Everywhere.
going from here to there and everywhere.
Jesus, because it's not a pick on you. You eat well, do you?
Yeah,
That could be in the breeding.
I don't know. I'd say I could do with losing a stone.
A stone?
Yeah.
Cheers, if you lost a stone one night, you do you? Fuck's sake.
But have we any more questions in that book?
What question do you wish I asked you?
That is a question.
There, that's a question.
Jesus Christ, let's Lal and Hardy wouldn't hold a touch on this. I don't know. I suppose the biggest question you could ever ask anybody is, what would they hope for the future, right? And when I say what would they hope for, I'm not talking about for me, like I'm immaterial to this whole thing, but what would I wish for other people for the future? I wish that we could have an Ireland that, that we could improve certain things, but that we could stop a lot of the negativity that's out there. If you were to go to, it's hard to explain this now, and sometimes I find it hard to explain what I have in my head. There's a hotel in Glenbeigh called the Towers Hotel. And I challenge anybody to go into that hotel someday and sit down where the people eat and look up at the photographs that are up on the walls. And there's photos that were taken in the 1800s. I don't know how, they're real photographs, and they're of people outside the accommodation they had at the time. And if we looked at the people, and if we looked at the clothes they had on them, and if we looked at the houses, which were literally a heap of stones thrown together, and if we look at where we've come from in Ireland and how far we've progressed, and to think that children, when they used to go to school one time, they had to carry a side of turf with them, because if they didn't, they were wanted in school that day, because they had to throw it into the fire to keep the fire going. Like, Ireland has progressed an awful lot. We've done an awful lot of good things in Ireland. Is there more things? Sure, of course there is. Am I happy with all aspects of the health service? I'm not, but I will challenge on another way then. There was one time, if a girl got breast cancer, it literally was a life sentence. And now, thankfully, if a lady has breast cancer, like, her probabilities and her hopes of making a successful survival, they're massively high, and especially an awful lot of other cancers if they're caught in time. So, people taking care of themselves, people, just getting on with living, and us as politicians trying to improve. I hate the generational loss. Like, I love to see young people going if they want to go. I hate to see people going because they have to go. And because if a boy and a girl goes away to Australia and then they have a child over there, or, somewhere out foreign, the grandparents are here. It's been very, very sad. I've been inside in houses, where people might have 4 kids. And their 4 kids, they're getting on great. They're mighty people, but they're not here. And I'd start to say, is that our fault? Is it our fault as politicians? Is it the fact that housing is so expensive? And like I say, I'm not criticizing other people. I'm criticizing myself. And I'm saying, oh God, what are we doing now about this? But those 4 kids, will say, that are gone out of that house, sure, they could have 3 kids each did themselves.
And they're far.
And then you have the mother and father, the original mother and father at home, and they're inside, and they might have a nice house. They're after working hard, but they're on Skype.
And they don't have family.
And they're on this,
Are we guilty in this country, I have to say
yes,
of looking after everyone other than their own?
I can see why you would say that. And when you see people leaving the country because they can't get housing, and when they see other people getting housing, I can see exactly why you would say that. But at the same time, we have responsibilities, but we also have responsibilities to our own people. And I'd like to think that even now changes that we're making with regard to planning, things that I would have been very vocal about and wanted to see being implemented, planning exemptions I'm talking about. If you have an envelope of a house, in other words, this building, and if a person wants to come along tomorrow morning and change this building into flats or into houses or into whatever, for God's sake, the goddamn house is there. The envelope of it is there. Go away and do whatever you want to do with your envelope. You're not hurting anybody outside these four walls. So common sense like that. We're going to legislate for that. And we're going to ensure that you will not have to apply to a local authority to do that. Whereas as
Michael,
it stands right now, you do.
Say you did turn around and turn this all into flats. And I'm not trying to be a bad person here, right? Because I think equal rights is a great job. But for the community here to put families into this rather than all men, do you know what I mean? Into an area. But that's a huge thing.
But of course, I agree to that. And we hear a lot being said about, this situation of all men being put into some place. Like if you take, there's four of us here now, right? And if we got even, another 100 like-minded people of us, in other words, the way we'd be very, very much the same in the way we think, So if we had 100 people like us and we were taken somewhere tomorrow morning to New York, and if we were put into a building, and if we were told, right, lads, there's 100 of you there now, you're all the same, ideologically and everything, we'd be sort of the same. And if we were told, you're living there, it's an unnatural way of living. Whereas if you and me are down the road somewhere and so is somewhere else, it's
integrated a bit.
Exactly. It integrates things a bit. You're awful serious. Can I tell you one funny story?
Yeah.
Are you old enough to remember Sting?
Yeah.
Okay. So you know who Sting was.
Fields Barley. Yeah.
Yes. So picture this. And he'll kill me for telling this story, but I love telling it because it's true. And my father always said, you can say whatever you like once it's true. So there's a very nice man in Glenflesk. Glenflesk is outside of Killarney. Himself and his wife, they own a very nice filling station and shop. And his name is Dennis O'Brien. And so they're a famous family. Willie O'Brien, the Cranes, he'd have been his uncle and everything. So a great family, great business people and everything. But when Dennis was young anyway, he was over in New York himself and a crowd of local lads from Barraduff and from Shrone and Headford and all that. They went over. And of course, there was a gang of them. What put this into my head when we were talking about people living in places together? So they were staying in a flat anyway. And one day Dennis was at his work. And I suppose the two most important people in the world at the time was Jesus Christ and Sting. They would have been the most known people in the world.
Yeah.
So whatever way anyway, Dennis O'Brien, he was inside
Keep
the
closer
elevator.
to this now or not.
Oh, sorry. Dennis O'Brien was in the elevator. And whatever way he turned around, and there was only one other person in the elevator. And who was it?
Sting.
Only Sting. So Dennis looked at him and he said, Jesus Christ, he said, you're Sting. So they had a conversation anyway, and that was fine. That night, Dennis went home to the apartment where he was living, and he was telling the lads, they were talking about their day, and the next thing Dennis said, God, lads, you won't believe who I met today. And they said, who did you meet, Dennis? And they were only half interested in the next thing. Sting. I met Sting, he said, in the flipping elevator in such a building. I met Sting. And like I say, the only thing that would have excited a person as much at the time was if we met our Lord in the lift. So, of course, they said, what did you say to him? And of course, Dennis said what he said. And now Dennis would be very smart. He's very intelligent, but he's very quick. So they said to him, and Dennis, what did Sting say to you? He took one look at me and he said, oh, sure, you're one of the Bryans from Glenflesk, aren't you? So anyway, you can't beat being quick.
No, you can't. You can't. Yeah. Cheers, thanks a million for coming. Really
Not
appreciate
at all.
it.
No, sure, I appreciate your time. And I hope that it's all right. I hope it's to your satisfaction, that it's not a
I
waste
hope
of time.
that too much didn't get out in the middle when it all fucking shit itself.
Did I cop that?
You copped that.
You're a great
Do you
man.
know how long I was doing it?
No.
And
What was it
everyone's
doing? Was
giving
it
out
not
about you.
recording at all?
Huh?
We don't know what happened. Sometimes you see, this isn't my job. I'm normally not here, but my editor does be here, and I'm manning everything and doing everything here myself. But anyway,
Sure, the way
say goodbye. Say goodbye.
Oh, sorry. Say goodbye.
Right, good luck, everyone.
Goodbye.
Sure, I'm only two, but I was told.